What's up, fragrant world, and welcome back to another Stay Fresh production. My name is JC. On this channel we talk about all things fragrance. If you like that kind of content, then thank you for being here. Hope you consider subscribing, stick around a while, hit that bell so you get notified whenever I upload so you don't miss a video. Alright, today I'm sharing with you some insight into some fragrances that have a very particular place in my journey, but this topic could also appeal to you if you were in the same position that I was, and I feel like most of us are in this spot at some point or another. Today we're talking about fragrances that I basically knocked before I tried. They're fragrances that I did not truly give a chance, give a full wearing, give a full experience to get to know and actually understand. Some of these I actually have smelled before. I may have sprayed them on a blotter in a store, sniffed it and said, okay, it's fine, whatever, and never gave it a second look. Even though I would go online and I would see a lot of people talking about how much they dig it, but I would just be going off of that one little associative experience I had and would just, again, write it off. And recently I have come back around to several fragrances that have opened my eyes to this idea, so much so that I had to compile a list and make a video out of this. I'm like, this is happening too many times. I need to actually share this with you. I implore you, find a way to give a full wearing. You know what I say. Don't just put it on a paper and smell it. Don't just put it on your hand and smell it. You got to give it that full wearing. A few sprays around the body, get it in the air, get the full aura of it. That's how you truly know how it wears with your energy. So let's dive right in. I got 5 fragrances to cover, and they're kind of in order from least favorite to most favorite, but the order is actually kind of irrelevant here. So let's dive in. Okay, so we got a few modern fragrances and we got a couple classics on this list. We're starting with a classic here from the 1980s. This is a legendary scent in the world of designer perfumery. And one thing I do want to mention, which you'll notice, is that pretty much all of these fragrances are designer fragrances coming from designer brands. And the reason for that is because, I'll be honest, as I've progressed on my journey, as my nose and my taste has evolved, I have found that designer fragrances just don't quite captivate me as much as they used to. At least in comparison to niche fragrances and more indie fragrances. Stuff that's off the beaten path, stuff that is intended to be artistic and to capture the senses. So it's so easy for me to write off designer fragrances, but I'm realizing, like, you know what? Give it a full wearing, give it a full understanding, and then you can really know if you like it or not. So this is one of them. I gave this several sprays in stores over the years, but now that I just kind of got a bottle, I just went ahead, through my resistance, bought a bottle just to have for the collection. And upon wearing, I've realized, man, I actually really like this stuff. This is Dior Fahrenheit. Absolute classic. I don't need to say much about it. You've probably seen it. You've probably worn it, you've probably smelled it on someone, and it is quite polarizing. I've come across many people who love this, who swear by it, who say, yeah, man, that was my signature scent in the late 80s into the 90s, love it, ladies loved it, all that. And you hear people say, like, I've been trying to like this for decades and I still hate it. Either way is valid, but if you're in that camp of people who say you hate it, you got to give it that full wearing before you can really scratch it off the list. What makes Fahrenheit special is its duality. And it was the whole marketing campaign, and it's the whole idea behind the fragrance, kind of mixing elements of cool and hot together in one scent. You have this cool, kind of almost metallic violet leaf, which is kind of an aqueous note, and some people say it smells like petrol. I don't really get that from this. But you also have some warm leather and some amber and vanilla. There's a sweetness in there. It is kind of fresh and, again, kind of cool when you spray it on, but there's this leathery, sweet undertone. And it's so unique. It was a trailblazer, and there's a reason why it's still being sold today. So I came back around to this after finally giving it a full wearing from this bottle, and I really, really appreciate it now. So our first pick, Fahrenheit from Dior. If you're enjoying this video right now, I'm glad, because I make this to give you enjoyment, and it gives me a lot of pleasure to create it. And I wanted to extend an invitation. If you want to help me continue to create content like this, content that I love, hopefully content that you love, you can support me and any other creators through various ways. One of them that I've created for myself for this platform is via Patreon, we have the Fresh Fam. If you want to join the fam, you can click the link down below. You're going to be able to see all the ways that you can support. There's various tiers depending on how much you feel like you're willing to contribute. And with each tier comes very special perks, including things like exclusive content you'll only see there. We have ways of interacting via chat rooms and also via the post there on Patreon. We're going to do live Q&As and even one-on-one personal consultations if you're interested in such a thing. So please, I'm just saying, help me continue to do this, continue to talk in front of this camera like a crazy person, but hopefully give you some enjoyment and just a piece of my passion. So link is in the description. Hope to see you there as a part of the Fresh Fam. Up next, this fragrance, it had a predecessor. I smelled that predecessor. I didn't care for that predecessor. So the flanker came out and I immediately just said, I didn't like the predecessor. I don't think I'm gonna care for the flanker that much. I did try this on paper, yet again, went in the store, sprayed it. I found it kind of pleasant. I'm like, this is a little bit better than I was expecting, but it still wasn't enough for me to give it a full wearing, to pick up a bottle, to get a sample, anything like that. So I just have wrote it off forever and ever until, again, I finally just forced myself to pick up a bottle because it was not that expensive. You can get it pretty cheaply on the gray market, and there will be links to all these fragrances down below where you can get them for a good price. And upon finally getting it, giving it that full wearing, I realized, like, man, okay, this is actually good. I like this. It's not amazing, but it's good. Let me remind myself of this little opening here in the air. It just smells good. Coach Platinum. Okay, quite a departure from the original. You still have that very like cashmere and ambroxany feel. That warm, woody muskiness is amplified like crazy. It is a little synthetic, but it smells really pleasant. Add vanilla, add pineapple, and it makes for quite an interesting combination. It is a little bit sweet and warm and oriental and kind of rich and creamy, but it has that fruity freshness, which is strange, but it works. And then underneath all that, it has that kind of almost metallic-y, woody, warm muskiness from those aroma chemicals. And again, it's just a pleasant wearing experience. I love the way it smells in the air. It has good performance, decent projection, and it's gonna last most of the day. So I'm happy to have it. I wear it every now and then, and every time I do, I never regret it. Coach Platinum. Now here's another fragrance in the list where I didn't have much interest in the predecessor. I honestly did not, I don't remember smelling it, but I heard that the flanker was coming out and I heard good things about it. So I actually went ahead and bought the flanker, reviewed it years ago, and I still have it here, and I really enjoy it. But I still never went back to that predecessor because I feel like, hey, I just kind of jumped over this part of the equation that I didn't need. Found myself in the place that matters the most, which is the flanker. But recently I went back to its predecessor and I realized that I was wrong. So I picked up Mr. Burberry Eau de Parfum when this came out. Again, I reviewed it and it's a great scent. I can see why people may not care for it that much, but in the realm of the designer market, it's kind of unique. Created by Francis Kurkdjian, so you would kind of expect that. He takes a bunch of elements together that you wouldn't think would be mass appealing. You put them in a bottle and they smell mass appealing, but also kind of unique. So this is the Eau de Parfum, but we're not talking about this. We're actually talking about the Eau de Toilette, its predecessor. And man, this just smells great. It just smells really, really good. Again, taking interesting elements, a little bit of citrus in here. You got some grapefruit to start things off, a nice fresh pop of mint, so it is quite fresh, quite open and very aromatic. A little bit of spice in there, cardamom, I think some nutmeg, and it dries down to be a little bit woody, cedar wood, sandalwood, vetiver. You got a little bit of amber wood, which is kind of an ambroxany feel, very, very common for these types of modern fresh scents. But it just smells very refined, very put together, but also fairly casual, a very versatile fragrance. And again, giving it that full wearing, I've loved this stuff. I wore it just a couple of days ago and I was just kind of like, how do I smell so good? How is this possible? impossible. This stuff, it just does it for me. I don't know what it is. I actually love the design of the bottle and everything, even this little bow tie, which I thought was corny at first. If you hear background noise, it just started pouring rain here, so you just got to deal with that. And you put them side by side and they work so well together. We got the nighttime, we got the daytimes, more warmer weather, slightly cooler weather. This is more patchouli heavy. This is more grapefruit spice heavy. Both great stuff. So I'm digging it. This is Mr. Burberry. This is the Eau de Toilette. Check it out. Okay, up next we got another oldie. This is a vintage fragrance. Came out in 1992. I had heard about it for many years and I did not even smell this. This is one I did not even bother with. I just assumed I'm not gonna like that. That's just way too old fashioned. People are saying, oh yeah, you can smell this on your dad or your grandpa, and that's the vibe that it gives off. I saw reviews on it, people saying, oh, I love it, it's great. It has that old vintage timeless feel. I'm like, okay, I don't know if that suits me. So again, wrote it off. Finally picked up a bottle recently because it was very inexpensive. This is just a testament to how my tastes have changed. I thought I didn't really care for these old school fragrances. I know my friend Dan, Mr. Smelly 1977, this is his alley right here. And I know he likes this one too. And I watch his reviews for years and think like, yeah, I see you talking about these fragrances all the time, but I just don't see if I'm gonna like them. I just didn't believe it. I'm beginning to see the light here. We're talking about Safari for Men from Ralph Lauren. Now, there's a lot of talk about this one with people saying it's not what it used to be. It's been reformulated. It's a shadow of what it once was, all that. Sure, I have smelled the original formulation or something closer to the older formulation before. I knew someone who had a dad who had this bottle in his bathroom, and he's told me he had it since like 1998 or something. So it was pretty much vintage. And I remember smelling it back then. I'm just like, no, it was just so stuffy, I couldn't handle it. So at least for me and my taste, it's been reformulated for the better. It's not pungent, it is quite subtle. This has an old school feel for sure. It has that kind of vintage fougere barbershop feel, but with amplified leather in here. Lots of leather, but it does have a nice warm sweetness to it. Lots of florals in the heart. A little bit of a freshness from like lavender and aldehydes, but it does dry down to be pretty warm and woody. And this is just a very refined scent. I love it. I love everything about it. This bottle is gorgeous. The design of the glass, it feels great in the hand. I love this crest on the front, Ralph Lauren. I've seen the light. This reminds me of another fragrance that I really enjoy. They are quite similar, the difference being this is heavier on the leather, while Pasha de Cartier, this is heavier on the spices. As they dry, they differ, but at first spray, they are quite similar. But this one is nice. This one's actually a little stronger. This one, the quality on this is so good. Pasha de Cartier persists a little bit better. It's gonna last a little longer. Safari, it is more subtle. You might get 5 hours out of this, but the experience is beautiful. And as it dries, it's just so refined. I love the complexity. You get that oak moss feel that you just don't get out of modern scents anymore. So I'm beginning to see the light, Dan. If you see this, I'm beginning to see the light when it comes to more vintage fragrances. And this is one I'm so glad I just didn't eternally write off. Safari for Men. Okay, so final one up. This is one that when it came out, I was really excited about it, but I immediately saw what it was smelling like. People are saying, oh, it smells like Dior Sauvage. Why is everyone copying Dior Sauvage? So I immediately was just like, no, I'm done with that. By this time, I had already owned the Eau de Toilette of Dior Sauvage, which I sold. I think I owned the Eau de Parfum at the time, and I was thinking about selling that because I was just tired of the DNA. Something about it just nauseated me. So I wrote this fragrance off because it was from a totally different brand that was trying to milk that cash cow that Dior had created. But one day, this was several years ago, I was on my way to a gig out of town. If you didn't know, I'm a musician. I play the trumpet. I was on my way to a gig out of town. When I left home, I forgot to bring a fragrance with me. As a fragrance freak, you know that you feel naked without a fragrance. So I'm like, man, I gotta see if there's any fragrance stores on the way to town. Now, I was kind of in the middle of nowhere, but I did happen to find a small little town that had a Kohl's or something, some kind of small little department store that had a modest collection of fragrances there, and they had this one there, and it was the best I could do. So I went ahead, put a few sprays on, went to the gig. Throughout the night I was getting whiffs. So I was like, you know what, this is kind of nice. This is nice. I'm getting the Dior Sauvage vibes, but this is different. After that experience, I didn't give a second look to this fragrance until recently I started getting an itch for it. It's like, man, I want to smell that again. I want to get that wearing experience again. Got a bottle, and I'm glad that I did. This is Prada Luna Rossa Carbon. I just love this stuff. Yes, it's super basic modern. It's super just mass appealing, very fresh and very aromatic and kind of metallic and all that. They said they have like this carbon tincture thing. I don't remember exactly what they said is in here. I don't really get all that, but it just smells basically like Dior Sauvage, that super fresh shower gel kind of, scent, citruses and whatnot, but no real spice. So smooth. So smooth. It is nowhere near as strong and as pungent. It doesn't last as long either. I might get 6 hours out of this, but honestly, I don't mind. The bubble is beautiful. I just know I smell so clean, so approachable. It just makes me feel good. This fragrance makes me feel really good. I can't explain it. All right, what's up? I'm an idiot. I forgot to mention, very important piece of information here. Prada Luna Rossa Carbon, the one I'm talking about right now, which I'll get back to in a second. This was provided to me by another fragrance reviewer, my boy Steve at Fragrance Fanatic. Steve, that's his channel. Maybe you've heard of him. If you haven't, his link is down below. Make sure you check out his videos. Go subscribe, show him some love. He started his own company. He's reselling designer fragrances at great prices. His company is called Kingdom Fragrances, and again, he provided me with this bottle. So I'm going to link to Kingdom Fragrances down below if you want to pick this up. If you want to pick up anything that they have, they got a growing inventory, and they have a great selection at the moment. So do them a favor, do me a favor, check them out at the link below. If you smelled it and you like it, then maybe you understand, but if you haven't, if you've written it off, this is my PSA. Give it another shot. Prada Luna Rossa Carbon. I'm digging it. Okay, now it's your turn. Let me know down in the comments, what is one fragrance that, let's say, we can take a couple ways with this. Either one fragrance that you smelled it, you thought it was decent, but you didn't have any inclination or intention to revisit it, but maybe you've been thinking about it. Let me know what that fragrance is. Or let me know if there's a fragrance that you did smell, you didn't care for it, but then you came back to it and realized, oh, I didn't give it that full experience. You wore it and now you love it. Let me know what that fragrance is. Either one, I would love to know. If you like the video, like the video. Really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed yet, if you've made it this far and you haven't clicked that button, again, as I said in the previous video, what do I gotta do? Tell me, what do I gotta do? What do I gotta do? I'm literally doing salsa dance right now. I don't salsa either. Just hit the button, please. Would love to have you back as a part of the Fresh Squad. We're building. Really appreciate you supporting the channel. If you're already a part of the squad, those of you who are not, please consider. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.